Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so happy to meet you again in Hemodynamic Practical Course, Lecture 9. Today, we'll talk about the long axis parasternal view, right ventricular inflow and outflow view. These are very important view because it is easy to get, and at the same time, you can collect a very important information from these views. Let us see on volunteer how easy you can get these views. Remember, it is parasternal long axis view. So your probe in the second or third left intercostal space, parasternal with the mark looking to the right shoulder. Okay, to get this long axis parasternal view in the screen. After that, it is very easy maneuver. You will tilt downward for the ultrasound beam to be directed towards the right hip. In this view, you will get the parasternal long axis view, right ventricular inflow view, where you will see away from your probe, you will see the right atrium with the tricuspid valve and the right ventricle just below your probe, okay? And if you fire the color, it will be very easy to measure the tricuspid valve velocity from this view. And good news, the tricuspid valve flow is almost parallel to your ultrasound beam in this view. Okay? This is the right ventricular inflow view. What about the right ventricular outflow view? You will tilt the probe upward in this direction. You will see in the with volunteer how easy you will do it. Okay? You will tilt upward. You will appear in the screen the long view, the long axis view of the pulmonary artery with the pulmonary valve very clearly appear. And if you fire the color, if you apply the color Doppler here, you will very easily see the flow through the pulmonary artery. And good news, the flow also is almost parallel to the ultrasound beam, so you can get a very accurate measurement. And you can get the very important information from this view. The pulmonary artery flow, you can use it to get the pulmonary artery outflow tract VTI, velocity time integral, to measure the stroke volume, and you can diagnose pulmonary regurg very easy from this view. And by applying the pulsed wave Doppler in the pulmonary regurg, you can very easy measure the mean pulmonary artery pressure and the diastolic pulmonary artery pressure. Let us see how easy you can do this view and what is the information you can collect from these unusual views.
هنا في if from this long axis parasternal view, which is the typical view, I will tilt the probe downward. I will get this amazing inflow view of the right side, right.
You will see just tilting downward to direct the ultrasound beam towards the right hip, you will see the right atrium away from your probe and the tricuspid valve and the right ventricle. And if you apply the color, you can very easy measure the tricuspid valve maximum velocity through this tricuspid valve.
Right atrium, tricuspid valve, and right ventricle, and from here you can very easy to assess the tricuspid regurg from this view. It's very easy to assess the tricuspid regurg here. As you see, it's very efficient. The flow is parallel to the ultrasound beam. Okay, this is very important view from the parasternal. Just to tilt downward towards the right hip, you will get this amazing right ventricular inflow view with right atrium, tricuspid valve, and right ventricle. Okay, and from if I came back, tilt up, I can get this amazing view, which is a typical view of pulmonary artery. From the parasternal view, I will not tilt downward, I will tilt upward. I will get this amazing view of the right pulmonary artery, and I can trace very efficient by the color. I can trace very efficient by color, and I can get from here very.
You see the flow and the ultrasound beam almost parallel to the flow on the pulmonary artery. And through this pulmonary artery, you can get pulmonary outflow tract VTI from here by putting the pulse wave Doppler here, and you can very easy measure the stroke volume from this pulmonary artery instead of aortic outflow tract, left ventricular outflow tract VTI. Okay.
Important knowledge. I can assess the pulmonary flow very easy. As you see, I can assess the pulmonary flow very easy. I can.
You see, this is the VTI velocity time integral of the pulmonary artery outflow tract. It is the surrogate of the aortic of the left ventricular outflow tract VTI. This is the surrogate. You can use this trace this VTI to apply in the measurement of the stroke volume. And there is also very important information you can collect from this view if you have the software, which is the pulmonary artery acceleration time. You will fire in the software the pulmonary artery acceleration time. You will apply the first cursor here, and you will see the and the second cursor will be in this big flow. And from this view also you can measure very important parameter, which is the pulmonary artery acceleration time, which is the time for the peak of the pulmonary artery flow. If you have the software in your machine, you will apply pulmonary artery acceleration time, and you will measure easy this the time from the beginning of ejection of the pulmonary flow to the peak of the pulmonary flow. This time should be less than 100 milliseconds. If it is less than 100 milliseconds, you are talking about pulmonary hypertension. And if it is less than 60 milliseconds, it is one of the signs, 60-60 sign, where you can diagnose the pulmonary embolism. So this is very important parameter you can collect from this view. What else? If you have slight pulmonary regurg here, so the systolic flow will be away from my probe, will appear below the baseline, but the pulmonary regurg during diastole will go towards my probe and will appear, as you see here, will appear towards my probe above the baseline. So if you trace this pulmonary artery regurg, you can diagnose a very important parameter here. You can diagnose the end diastolic or the diastolic pulmonary artery pressure by knowing the end diastolic velocity here. And here the end diastolic velocity is, say it's about here 15 centimeters second. You can from this end diastolic velocity by the Bernoulli equation, you can diagnose, you can measure the diastolic pulmonary artery flow. The machine will do it very easy for you through the Bernoulli equation. And by tracing the pulmonary artery gauge or getting the maximum velocity of the pulmonary artery gauge, this maximum velocity, if you know it, you can diagnose the mean pulmonary artery pressure very easy through the Bernoulli equation, where the velocity square multiplied by 4. The machine will collect it very easy to you. Okay, so from this view, you can measure the VTI and measure the stroke volume. You can know the pulmonary artery, the acceleration time, the time to peak pulmonary artery flow, to diagnose pulmonary hypertension, and to diagnose pulmonary embolism. And you can measure the mean pulmonary arterial pressure by knowing the maximum pulmonary regurg velocity, maximum pulmonary regurg velocity. You will measure the mean pulmonary arterial pressure and the minimum pulmonary regurg velocity. You can diagnose the diastolic pulmonary artery.
Measure the VTI of pulmonary artery. I can assess the pulmonary regurg, and from pulmonary regurg, and I can get an idea about pulmonary hypertension. So this is amazing view from the parasternal long axis view. If you tilt downward, you will get the inflow view of the right ventricle, and if I tilt upward, tilt upward, I will get this amazing view of the pulmonary artery and the pulmonary valve. You see, you can get here a very good flow of the pulmonary artery, and you get a lot of information about the pulmonary artery flow, and you assess also the pulmonary artery and the pulmonary artery. This is